Ikin vitet, ikin modet, ne çdo maj ti vjen të kshokët. Si lulkuqet në përgru, gjapi o
You maybe sit here.
Oh, no, okay. Can I welcome in Danish?
Of course.
Jeg tror, I alle forstår dansk, except Visa og Albin. Men jeg vil gerne byde jer velkommen til det her møde, som vi har set frem til med stor forventning i meget lang tid. Og jeg synes, jeg vil senere hen, der vil jeg give jer noget materiale om det, vi laver i STS, og også en pjece, som viser, da vi sidst var på besøg i Kosovo var det i april 2010, med Søren Søndergaard blandt andet, hvor vi igen så minearbejderne i en noget anden situation, end de var i 1998. Dengang var det en stærk organisation, nu er den meget, meget svag. Og så er der også et historisk tidsskrift, kan man sige, da vi fyldte 100 år. Så gik vi tilbage i tiden og beskrev, hvor vi arbejdede i Kosovo, hvor vi arbejdede i Bosnien, hvor vi arbejdede her og der. Og det forklarer en masse om også, hvordan vi ser på årsagerne til det, der sker. Well, I think that I have just... And then I think one of you will start this meeting.
Well, I'm very glad to be here again. I was here 3 years ago, and it's honor and pleasure to be here together with all of you. I would like to thank Vaughan and STS International Solidarity for all the support throughout these years. We have in Kosovo international rule, and we have here international solidarity. So this means very much to us, especially at this times when independence of Kosovo is not that young anymore. It's more than 4 years that we've declared it, but still there is no sovereignty, territorial integrity, economic development, and sufficient international recognition. We have many challenges ahead, and we think that for this reason we need cooperation with sister organizations, with other movements around the world, because all the people who are suffering from injustice, they have a lot in common. And what they have in common must be activated politically and socially. So we look forward to intensify our cooperation, and I hope that Vaughan will be able to come and visit Kosovo again, and this time to meet me, because last time that was not possible. So I hope that next time we can have some good activities.
I see you much better office.
Yes, we have now way better conditions of work, but we have way more work now. It's like
Yes.
this ocean of details, you know. And one has to be careful because institutions take a lot of your energy, time, and nerves. So we try to balance these things, to work more on the organization than inside the institutions, even though the work inside the institutions we do is for Kosovo's good and is strengthening the organization in return. Inside our movement, we develop a sort of, let's say, political school, which tries to bring some political emancipation, to raise awareness about international politics, but also to make people read more and discuss more. During, let's say, socialist era, we had learning without discussion. So in that era, we were supposed just to learn because the truth was there. You were not supposed much to think and discuss. And now, when democracy with pluralism and capitalism arrived, we have discussion without learning. You know, we discuss all of the time and we learn nothing. So we try to combine these two to be able to both learn and discuss, discuss and learn. And that is what political school and the movement as forum for debates is doing. On the other hand, we try to nurture a culture of resistance inside the movement in our internal activities, which then get expression in public sphere as well. And there are several, let's say, key principles that we adopt and maybe could be useful to others as well. One is that we should be both proud and humble. So one of the reasons why many organizations were having fractions, many movements were dispersing, is personal, individual egoisms, and we try to move that away. Second is we have to be working hard, but at the same time to be patient. Many young people, many activists who join the movement, they want fast results. And we could have results in achieving objectives. But our vision, our program, our aim is not that short term. So one has to work hard and be patient. Within our debate, we try to discuss, learn, and stay united, which is also being accomplished through having this principle that there can be no blame without self-blame. If we are together, we cannot blame each other without taking ourselves some responsibility. Because once an activist blames the other without blaming himself or herself at all, then there is no organization. If we are together, then we all contribute and we are all guilty. In organization, there is no innocence. Nobody is innocent in one organization. So we are all responsible and guilty for our successes and for our failures. During these years, we also try to keep our judgments just after a thorough analysis, research, and studying. Because one of the dangers for the organization is when people jump too soon into conclusions and judgments for different causes, events, and each other. So whenever we need to work something or to analyze something, somebody has to go in a certain village or in a certain town and stay there and talk with people and collect the facts and opinions and then come up with a judgment. Because there is a great danger of people judging all of the time, always too soon, within this frame that I named as discussion without learning. So these are some of the things that we are learning by working together in the movement. And in this year and next year, we will try to get linked with as many as possible organizations in the world, because there is an interesting matching. In one hand, in these couple of years, Kosovo must prove itself as a viable state. Otherwise, it risks more than any time before to become a failed state from a weak state. And second, also the European Union, also the world is in some crossroads now. And different movements around the world are thinking what is the best way forward. So we are very interested and ready to participate in this debate. So I think that next couple of years are crucial for our movement, for Kosovo as a state, but one could say even more than that. They are crucial also for Europe and the world, because then we will have some indications of what is the path that world society, our societies, different communities are taking. I thought it's a bit better maybe to talk about organization, because politics, we know very well each other what we think and what our opinions are.
Are you finished?
Yes.
You don't want to say anymore? What?
Not for now.
Not for now. Okay, thank you. Should we hear first what Visa has to say, and then we can discuss? Would it be good?
Okay, well, thank you. I'm not going to be very long because a lot of things were said by Albin. Since he spoke about the organization, there's nothing much I can add there. I think that one important issue that needs to be raised is what we find in Kosovo, and especially in our political activities. We see that there is this, perhaps I say, a sort of a confrontation in not just the ideologies and ideas that come from abroad, which take the form of political and economical models there, but also what one might describe as the Brazilian theorists call it the epistemological colonization, which presents us with ready models of ways, patterns, how to think, and which should be applied by us without questioning them. And this has, it's very problematic, I think, because it kills the critical thinking, or it aims at killing the critical thinking among the people, individuals, especially the population as a collective, and also it presents us with a model that cannot be followed, which aims or also has this effect of presenting a form of a perpetual guilt, because you cannot achieve a model that has been presented to you. And on a very practical sphere, this also works at the majority, or not the majority, but the key jobs in Kosovo being, or that have been so far, employed by the people who either had a diploma that was obtained from abroad, or they were simply internationals. Like, for example, in the key institutions of Kosovo, from the pension fund to the constitutional court to the privatization fund, we have international members there. And they are there because of what is called their expertise, because the people of Kosovo do not have that expertise. This was what UNMIK, when they first arrived in Kosovo in 1999, the United Nations mission, they brought also this way of thinking about the politics and the institutions of the political institutions, whereby they consider that the people of Kosovo have nothing, they know nothing, and all the history of the people of Kosovo has actually been false, and therefore they came to develop the new, or to start the new history, which is going to be based on reality, on the real needs of the people. And by ignoring and suspending, in a way, all the institutional history of Kosovo, then obviously there is only one solution, and that solution is that we have to build an institution and a society from anew, and by considering us to be completely ignorant on this aspect, then they did it themselves. And when they did it themselves, they did it to suit themselves. So basically this is in a way what we are facing even today, because it is the same model that has been perpetuated and went on in Kosovo. When they came to Kosovo, they obviously found a country which was war-ravaged, but at the same time a country whose economy, although very much damaged, was based 100% on socially owned enterprise. And the first proposed solution that they gave was full privatization. So basically it went totally against the reality on the ground, and it was a pure ideological intervention into what was going on and into the country as such. And then they started to implement this. 500 enterprises of Kosovo have already been privatized. 60% of the people that used to be employed by those enterprises are now out of job. It damaged the economy of Kosovo more than it helped, and it also ruined the production capacities that Kosovo had by ruining also the traditional industries that Kosovo had. They also used the same way of thinking when it comes to the enterprises and the economic development of the practical solution for the economy, because they were saying that the people of Kosovo, although they had some experience into working like in Power Generation Corporation or in the Trepça mine, in the Trepça smelter and other factories, technologies have changed, markets have changed, organizational forms have changed, and therefore you have no chance in this world. The only chance in this world is if we guide you towards the progress. And actually, I'm going to use again another phrase of Walter Mignolo. He says that the neoliberal model came to us with a banner of progress and salvation and progress. And straight away, it was changed to salvation as progress. So basically, just by changing this small link between these two words, you change the whole concept. Because you're not saved first and then being put to road to progress, but you are asked to accept salvation as progress. So by the mere fact that you're alive, you are better than being dead, and you could have been dead. So this is I think the motto, the slogan that has been terrorizing the people of Kosovo for 10 years now. In every occasion and every chance that politicians of Kosovo or the international executive powers in Kosovo have, they remind us of the fact that we could have all been dead, and that we are saved by them, and by considering salvation as progress, then you have no right to ask for anything else, because you're already progressing. So I think that this, in a way, I try to present a sort of a political, sociological, and also economical context in where we work, which is, I think, linked to what has already been said in the way we organize and how we do it and why. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, have you any questions?
We have more or less 1,000 questions, because you've been speaking in a very general way, and I'm full of questions about how to cope with the internal problems, how to cope with Serbia and Nikolic, what is the relationship with Albania, and I mean, it looks awfully complicated, everything, I think.
Do you want to start the meeting, or
Maybe you can
okay, as you are probably informed, the Kosovo's government has entered into a new process of dialogue with Serbia at the beginning of last year. it is worth noting, I think, that the ever first decision that the government of Kosovo took after it was established, after the fraudulent votes of 2010, was the decision to appoint one of the deputy prime ministers to be the main person who is going to negotiate with Serbia. So it shows that this government has been formed in Kosovo, and it has been accepted by international factors, and especially the EU, only for the sole purpose to continue, or to start and continue the dialogue with Serbia. Throughout this dialogue, although it has been called a technical dialogue, there have been 8 agreements reached on different issues, and the most important agreements are the one on the denominator of Kosovo's name into regional regional cooperative forums on different issues, where they removed the word republic from the official name, so it's not Republic of Kosovo. It is only called Kosovo with an asterisk, and then this asterisk shows that this denomination takes into consideration Resolution 1244, and it also takes note on International Court's opinion on the Declaration of Independence of Kosovo. So basically this brought Kosovo politically back to the time of UNMIK, before the Declaration of Independence. The second agreement that has been reached is the agreement on the integrated border management. But that agreement also plays on words in order to be suitable to both parties. It is called an international IBM. The abbreviation in English can mean integrated border management, but also integrated boundary management, which is suited to Serbia's constitution, which keeps Kosovo as part of its own territorial integrity and sovereignty. Therefore, a boundary is an administrative boundary that we have. That can be used for regions, that can be used for municipalities, but is not an international border between two sovereign countries. The other agreement these are the two most problematized and most spoke of agreements, but there are other agreements which I think are more criminal, and especially the agreement on the cadastral register. As you know, in 1999, when Serbian forces withdrew from Kosovo, they took the civil registry and the cadastral registry of Kosovo, and they have not returned these registers back to Kosovo ever. And now Kosovo's government has reached an agreement with the government of Serbia to only take copies of the registers by leaving the originals in Belgrade. Now, being aware of the fact that Serbia has conducted at least 5 colonization processes in Kosovo, whereby the private property of Albanians were given to Serb colons, this fact that Serbia now has the original cadaster is very problematic for Kosovo. Serbia's government claims is that about 60% of private property in Kosovo is owned by Serbs. And by having the cadaster, the original books of cadaster in their hands, they can actually make this a fact. It also, after the 1999, there was some transaction of property in Kosovo where Serbs would sell their property to Albanians, but what they did was also, in many occasions, they sold the same property to 2 or 3 people. And basically, we also had some conflicts between Albanians about this property, by everybody claiming legitimately that it is my property because it was I that bought it. And they could do this by falsifying documents in courts in Serbia, and now they could do that because they had the registry book then, and they can continually do that because they still have the registry. Having the registry of private property in your country is the foremost sign of sovereignty. So whoever keeps these books is the sovereign that actually has this registry and knows and can decide on who owns which property. Now, by the Serbian government keeping these books in their hands is both problematic in political aspect, because it is in a way indirectly accepted by the government of Kosovo that they are the sovereign, and it has a very practical problem that I've mentioned by the ability to falsify documents and changing the reality of the ownership of property on ground. Also, Serbia is still present within the territory of Kosovo through its illegal structures of government, both security, judicially, and also in administrating education, health, in some cases social schemes and pensions. And these structures are mostly concentrated in the northern part of Kosovo, but they are still existing in other parts of Kosovo, in what is called Serb-majority municipalities in the eastern part and the southern part of Kosovo. We consider that first, that there should be no dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia without Serbia fulfilling 10 preconditions. That is, first, recognizing Kosovo as a sovereign country. The second is to apologize publicly for the crimes that Serbia committed against Albanians in Kosovo. And by this apology, I don't mean just a formal apology, but in a way politically accepting their responsibility for all the crimes that have been committed, because the government of Serbia simply does not accept that. They say that, okay, Milosevic did that, Tadic is saying, I'm not Milosevic, therefore everything is fine. And then the other preconditions are that Serbia return all the kidnapped Albanians and who were killed in Serbia during and after the war, bodies of which are not still returned in Kosovo. There are about 1,800 such cases that Serbia is keeping in mass graves in Serbia and not giving any information on. The other thing is that Serbia should pay for all the damages that it committed towards the private property in Kosovo and also the socially owned enterprises. There is an estimate that just the damages that have been conducted against Kosovo's economy have been evaluated up to 2 billion euros. This is not including the private houses that were destroyed or burned, and also the other damages that were conducted to the infrastructure because of the war and all the other things. Then Serbia should also return the pension fund that it stole from the people of Kosovo. You have people that have been contributed in the fund for 35 years, like my father, and now he gets nothing from the fund. And then they should also return all the savings that have stolen from the banks of ex-Yugoslavia that belong to Albanians. There's a huge amount of money there as well. The other thing is that Serbia should apply a reciprocal mutuality of rights to Albanians in the valley of Preševa, in the municipalities of Bujanovac, Preševa, and also Medveđa, because they are requesting a lot of rights for Serbs in Kosovo, but at the same time they are very oppressive against Albanians in Serbia. So these are more or less the preconditions that Serbia has to fulfill before we can enter into any kind of dialogue with Serbia. And even then, we are totally opposed to dialogue or a negotiation whereby only Kosovo is the topic, because currently we're only talking about Kosovo. So basically the whole negotiation process has actually not changed Serbia and Serbia's position against Kosovo. It is changing Kosovo, and it's changing it radically, dramatically, like removing the republic, renaming the border as a boundary and stuff like that. So after the preconditions are fulfilled, then Kosovo can talk to Serbia as a neighboring country, but it should only limit these talks on the things that belong to a mutual or interstate agreement. And no other topic should be raised. If this doesn't happen, and we said this even in the Parliament of Kosovo, we should put these conditions to Serbia. We should not go into dialogue with Serbia. We should block any trade or any kind of other relations with Serbia, and let Serbia decide whenever they want to recognize Kosovo. Now, there are two means that Kosovo had to condition Serbia. This is for the first time in history that we could condition Serbia, and the government of Kosovo did not use this means. One is not to go to dialogue with them, because this dialogue was necessary for Serbia to become closer to the European Union. And they used this dialogue and these agreements to get the candidate status for European Union. So if Kosovo did not approve this dialogue, then Serbia would not be able to go to the European Union, which was the main political slogan and political activity of their president, Tadic. And the second thing is that we should block all relationship, especially economic and trade relations with them, because Serbia is profiting a lot from Kosovo. There are 500 millions of goods that we purchase annually from Serbia. Also, they make about 50 million euros of cash per year by imposing onto us the telephone code, the fixed telephone code, which we cannot obtain because we're not a member of the ITU. And they make some money on energy transition that transits through Serbia comes to Kosovo, because the grid of Kosovo is also integrated with that of Serbia, because we don't have any other choice currently. So by stopping all these profiting that Serbia has from us, and also by making it unable for Serbia to use a dialogue with Kosovo to access EU, then Serbia would have felt conditioned. And in that case, Kosovo would have been in a much better position. We would be into an advantaged position, and then we could have turned our back to Serbia and say, whenever you change your mind, we're here. But until then, don't even knock on our door. But what the government of Kosovo did was the total opposite. Serbia turned its back on it, and they went and begged, can we please dialogue with you so we can help you to go to EU. So this is the way this whole situation has been constructed, and therefore these damages that we are seeing now in the political aspect of Kosovo, we think come also from this the readiness of Kosovo's politicians to always stand in front of Serbia's government and try to gain a negotiation or an agreement with them, which are always damaging to Kosovo. And when it comes to Albania, I think Albin can continue with the relation with Albania and what should it be.
Well, the will of the people of Kosovo and Albania is for having Kosovo joining Albania. According to Gallup International, a couple of years back there was this poll, and 63% of the citizens of Albania were pro-unification, and 81% in Kosovo. So the will of the people is for Kosovo joining Albania, despite the fact that we do not have the right for referendum. Once referendum would be allowed, that would be a sort of a yes to a yes. So that would additionally increase the number of people who would vote pro-unification. Thinking how referendum is not legally there, despite this people voted yes with majority in the case of Albania, and with absolute majority in the case of Kosovo. Besides being the will of the people, I think it's also the interests of the people, economic and security interests. Together we would have been one market. We would join human resources. We would join natural resources. Albania has sea, mountains, and water. We in Kosovo have coal and minerals and fields. And definitely this would add value to our economy. On the other hand, Serbia, but also Greece and Macedonia, would feel discouraged in their appetites for the territories which are inhabited with majority of Albanians, precisely by seeing that Albanians got together, they are stronger now, and there will be huge resistance if they attempt something in line with their hegemonic character of their states. So I think that Albanian nationalism has always been rather defensive. It has been patriotism, where simply Albanians within the scope of 1 century lost half of the territories they used to inhabit in the year 1912. It is not that we are obsessed with territory, not at all. I think that those who took the territories are rather obsessed. And in this sense, Serbia was playing the role of small Russia in the Balkans, being fixated with the territories, and wherever Albanians are, they used to live for centuries there, and at the same time they are majority wherever they are. The year 1945 was not less traumatic than the year 1913. In the year 1913 there was this London conference where the foreign minister of England, Sir Edward Grey, said at the end of the London conference that we did a great injustice to Albanian people, but this was in order to preserve world peace. 1 year after we have the First World War, so that much for the world peace. In the year 1928, Communist Party of Yugoslavia had its fourth Congress in Dresden, Germany. And there, Communist Party of Yugoslavia said that Kosovo should be independent and have the right to join Albania according to the Leninist right to self-determination. Because we know very well that by the end of the First World War, we had two world leaders at that time coming up more or less at the same time with the concept of the right to self-determination. On one hand was Lenin, on the other was Woodrow Wilson with his 14 principles. So Communist Party of Yugoslavia said that Kosovo should be independent and should have the right to join Albania. But then in the year 1943, 29th of November, there was a second meeting of AVNOI, which were the Liberation Council of People, and Albanian partisans were not invited there at all. In this meeting, which was held in Jajce in Bosnia, they formed Macedonia as a separate republic. Till then, Macedonia did not exist. So Macedonia was born in second meeting of AVNOI, 1943, 29th and 30th of November. 1 month later, there is Bujan Conference, which is at the border today of Kosovo and Albania, in Malsia Jakovos, the mountains surrounding Jakovo. And there participated Kosovar partisans, not only Albanians, but also Serbs. And they made a resolution for the right to self-determination of Kosovo to join Albania. So also the Serb partisans were pro-unification of Kosovo with Albania. But then, after a few months, there was Prizren Assembly under the direction of Belgrade, which abolished Bujan Conference resolution. And Albanians were kept under Yugoslavia. They were not allowed to join Albania. And not only this, they were not allowed to have their own Seventh Republic inside Yugoslavia, not even autonomous province, but majority of Albanians were left to Serbia because the Serbia was the strongest. Average number of Albanians were left to Macedonia because Macedonia was an average republic, and smallest number of Albanians were left to Montenegro because Montenegro was the weakest. So some could have called this today crisis management. So separating Albanians in different republics. And that's why the year 1945, I must say, is not less traumatic for Albanians than the year 1913. Throughout the decades after the Second World War, due to illegal resistance, which was revolutionary, leftist, but also nationally based, Kosovo started to increase its autonomy. But the entire process of increase of the autonomy collapsed in one day in March 1989. when Milosevic's regime revoked autonomy and made Kosovo part of Serbia. Then Democratic League of Kosovo started with this resistance, which, for my opinion, was passive resistance. It was very often too passive to be called a resistance. There was this parallel system of education and healthcare, necessary yet totally insufficient. Albanians started to seriously think about uprising, especially after the year 1995. Because in the year 1995 we have two very important moments. First moment is liberation of Croatia from Serbia. And in the summer of the year 1995, the myth of unbreakable Yugoslav army was broken. And in the December of the year 1995, we have Dayton Conference, where simply Kosovo was not invited again, like in Avnoj in 1943. We had all those promises from the Europeans and Americans that Kosovo will be invited to Dayton peace talks. That did not happen. Kosovo was left out because that was the condition of Milosevic to join peace talks in Dayton, Ohio, United States, which were mediated by, at that time, Warren Christopher, who used to be Secretary of State under first Clinton mandate. However, it is very interesting what Milosevic said at that time. When he was asked by journalists whether he considers that Kosovo is an internal issue of Serbia, he said that is not true. Kosovo is not an internal issue of Serbia because Kosovo is not an issue. And in a very disrespectful way, full with disdain, he said, no talks about Kosovo. And I think that since then, Albanians massively thought, okay, we will have to take up guns. There were illegal groups, illegal resistance, but in small numbers. Since the year 1995, I think that a lot of monologues among Albanians started to develop in order to have this armed uprising, which started with Kosovo Liberation Army. Kosovo Liberation Army would have not been possible without two decisive elements. First is Albania, because we're not locked like Bosniaks in Bosnia. We had Albania, and the guns came from Albania. Because in 1997 there was this turmoil in Albania, and all the storehouses of guns were broken, and guns, armament got in the hands of the people, so Kosovo Liberation Army could have had them. This is first element: Albania, logistics, some officers, army officers, and especially guns, Kalashnikov and Chinese automatic rifle, left from Enver Hoxha time. Second element is our diaspora. Without money from diaspora, no liberation war could have taken place, especially in that volume. So our diaspora enabled liberation war more than a decade ago, and today is the condition for social peace. Without their money, yesterday we wouldn't have war, today we wouldn't have peace. And I think that in diaspora we find all Albanians together. It doesn't matter whether they are from Tetova, from Shkup, from Mitrovica, from Preševa, or from Ulcin, or from Tirana, Elbasan, Shkodra, or Vlora. Our diaspora is together. So this is the second element which enabled liberation war, which again proved that we move forward in the name of national liberation struggle, and at the same time, by working together, Albanians, despite these borders that separate us. I think that when it comes to nationalism, Albanian nationalism is not like the French nationalism, but rather like Algerian nationalism.
Yeah.
It's national liberation.
Yeah.
We do not demand to go to Belgrade, but we want to protect ourselves from Belgrade not coming in our territories. And at the same time, we think that nation is still important because it brings solidarity, it brings social bonds, it creates community, and it is a tool and a value against neoliberalism. Neoliberalism doesn't like nations because in nation people get together and reject foreign intrusion, foreign rule. However, one has to be careful that national identity, nationalism, patriotism, not to be developed at the expense of other nations, not to be offensive, not to be to have the character of attack, but only defensive and liberation struggle. In Albanian nation, this is a bit easy, I must say, because we do not have rich bourgeoisie which has production and who could be carrier and barrier of reactionary nationalism. Albanian people, it is the poor people who want national unification. It is not the bourgeoisie, because the bourgeoisie are compradore. They are merchants, not producers. It's not like in Germany, where among the right wing you have the nationalism, because Siemens, Mercedes, all these big companies, they like German market to expand, and they use nationalism for that. No, it's not like that, because our rich class, our upper class, are traders, those who bring products of Serbia to Kosovo. Our richest people are not producers, are merchants. Those who bring products of Serbia get a big percentage from that by politicians who go to negotiate with Serbia. So a lot of features of neo-colonialism in this respect as well. So I think for Albanians it is easier, because if we would have had big production, have more export than import, then nationalism could become very reactionary. But export-import ratio in Kosovo is 1 to 11. 11 times more we import than we export. So it is the poor people, it is the poor farmers, it is those who produce, manufacture, who are nationalists. It is not the rich class. So this is at our benefit, I think.
Maybe it's a naive conclusion to draw, but still I am of the impression that foreign authorities are intensively cooperating with the government, and it's in their interest to paralyze whatever development that may be. I mean, yesterday these two men presented many ideas on how we could experience growth. We could have a more domestic production friendly policy that would reduce the rate of unemployment that is currently 45%. It is claimed to be 45%. And by this we could have, people will get paid more. And therefore, maybe us who live in the diaspora, we wouldn't have to send money, and there would be an opportunity for savings or for investments in companies, in development in Kosovo. This would correct so many lousy conditions and so much of the misery that is happening in Kosovo. But we are contemplating right now a establishment of a center, a Vendosje center in here, and I have regained some hope, because I believe that I still am of the impression that that country or that foreign country that is operating most in Kosovo right now is the U.S. or are the U.S. And maybe I am naive because I'm raised in Denmark, but I believe that there is a huge difference between Scandinavian countries and the U.S. I believe that if we had an organization here who talked regularly with some healthy parties who have healthy democratic values, we would be able to put a pressure on our government. We would be able to put a pressure on the delegates that are in Kosovo. I don't understand how the ambassador of the U.S. He didn't recognize this party, Vizitë, as a democratic party, as a democratic organ. And actually so many Albanians, young Albanians here, say that of course they don't do that because they're only throwing eggs and throwing stones when they demonstrate. This is one of the most beautiful elements of democracy. When it's not necessary, you are not obligated to throw stones in a democratic country, but you have the right to. And when you use this right, it means that there is something severely wrong. And I am actually very much looking forward to presenting all of our ideas to Englishman actually. So I'm hoping that we will receive some help, and I'm hoping that we will be able to accomplish something. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, but you chair the meeting. If someone wants to ask something, you can go. Can't you do that, Mimosa? Ask someone if they have a question. Yes.
I was like actually because when you were talking about achieving a new formula for a new organization, because that's what's a huge problem in Kosovo government and all parties that are in Kosovo actually. I haven't been so political active, but biological health, by cooperating and learning from the developing countries or developing organization or parties, or developing countries. You were like talking about the cooperation. By cooperating, we might reach this new formula. But how is your opinion in cooperation? I know you can cooperate with the external parties or sister parties in the other countries, but I just want to ask what does it take, like, to cooperate with parties, or what does it take, like, to make all Albanians, because as you told, our nation defense is very strong. When somebody like attack us, we are very strong, cooperating together to defend ourselves. Why aren't we as good to cooperate and develop our country as we are like to defend it when somebody attack us? It's like I see a big problem that we are not so good cooperating to develop us as we are good when somebody attack us, when we are that we are such a good to defend us. What's the big problem there actually? I just want to understand that.
Okay, I will tell you my impression, which
it's your opinion.
Which might not be, I might not exhaust this topic, but I think that the problem is that people think that they are progressing in Kosovo. So as Visar mentioned, salvation is progress first. We got rescued, we got saved, and it's very good now. And we are progressing bit by bit, and this feeling that it is getting better and it will get better. And meanwhile, coming up with slogans like Basukri, the old man, it's over, like saying to Adem Yashari, it's over, like declaring the end of the struggle, which demobilized people. I think this has been done systematically by our government and by political parties in Kosovo. On the other hand, it is the project of neoliberalism, which is a pessimistic model, because it tells you that you can develop with foreign investment from outside and from above, because you in yourself are almost nothing. So just as military intervention of NATO came from above, now they have created this collective imaginary of people of Kosovo that development will somehow come from above. So I think that this is in line with neoliberal model, which wants to atomize society into individuals, make people lose self-confidence and self-respect, and entering into the game of clientelism, where simply you try to do something for yourself and your family in short term, as much as you can, as fast as you can, because there's no collective plan. So I think that this is why now people have been scattered, dispersed, and there is no unity of goal in collective sense. And when we get endangered, then all of a sudden we go into this old mindset when we know what to do. But progressively, for state building, for building our country, we didn't reach in that moment where we could get together constructively, progressively to build something. And Visar explained this in public meeting that with students, that developmental state would do precisely this. I think that it's not that people are lazy, it's not that people are immoral, it's not that people are selfish in themselves, but the frame, political frame which has been put upon them makes them behave, act, non-act just as they do at present.
Ikin vitet, ikin modet, ne çdo maj t'i vjen të kshokët. Si dul kuqe në përgrure, gjaku jot u bë flamure.